for me, it makes me want to play harder for them.
You are Locked On Fantasy Basketball, your daily podcast on fantasy basketball. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello and welcome to the Locked On Fantasy Basketball podcast brought to you by Basketball Monster. My name is Josh Lloyd and I am the lead fantasy analyst at basketballmonster.com, and you can find me on Twitter as always at redrock_bball. We've eased off after that huge 11-game Wednesday, just the 3 games on Thursday. We're going to be looking at all of that, including LeBron James and his Laker debut. Then we're going to preview the 9 games we have for Friday in the NBA. Michael Bolton.
Let's get to it.
All right, let's get to it indeed. We will start with the monstrous line of the night. And for Thursday, that goes to the process, Joel Embiid of the Philadelphia 76ers. He was always going to be in a pretty nice spot going up against the Chicago Bulls and their piss-poor defense. Embiid took full advantage, 30 points, 12 rebounds, 3 assists and a steal, 4 blocks, 9 of 14 from the field. And of course, just a ton of free throw attempts, going 12 of 14 from the line as well. Both of Embiid's games so far this season have been fantastic. If you grabbed him at the end of the first round, start of the second round, you're pretty impressed, or you're pretty happy with what he's done through these first 2 games. I think the most important thing to note are the minutes, though. This was a game where the Sixers were up by 20 points at the start of the fourth quarter. Embiid had played 24 minutes, and he still came in and played another 9 minutes in that fourth quarter, ending with 33 minutes after playing a 34 against the Celtics the other day. So that's important to me. That's really, or actually, he played more than that against the Celtics, 37 I think he played. That's important to see him getting these minutes. There is absolutely 0 minutes restriction. There's no back-to-back issues. Of course, we're always going to have our heart in our mouth with Embiid, but it looks like he is past these issues. Fingers crossed, and he is your monstrous line of the night, and he will get a few more of those as the season progresses. I have no doubt about that. Let's go on to the waiver wire line of the night.
Waiver wire line of the night.
That is Scooter McGruder. He's also our deep leaguer of the night, owned in only, I think, 1% of Yahoo League, so he qualifies for that award as well. Yeah, 1% for Scooter. 20 points, 8 rebounds, 6 assists, setting career highs all over the place. Blocked a shot, hit 3 triples, perfect from the line, 7 of 12 from the field. Really, really strong stuff. We know that Erik Spoelstra and the Miami Heat really love Rodney McGruder, but this Heat team is so weird to figure out. They have got legitimately 13 rotation players on their roster. The ones who aren't really rotation guys are the two-way guys, Duncan Robinson and Yonte Maten. And then there's Udonis Haslem, and that's it. Everyone else, you can make arguments that they should be in the rotation. So they used 9 guys today, but the 4 guys who were out, Justice Winslow, Dion Waiters, the Duke Wayne Ellington, and Jim Johnson, like they should come in and get playing time. So Spoelstra's not going to use a 13-man rotation. So who misses out? Is it Waiters? Is it Kelly Olynyk, who looks to be very much down the depth chart? Is it McGruder? Is it Derek Jones Jr.? I think we can put Jones in that batch. But is McGruder going to be the guy that misses out? I don't really know how it's all going to happen. He played the second highest amount of minutes on this Heat team today. That's 2 games in a row that he started with all these injuries. Is Johnson is still dealing with issues? Does McGruder continue to hold this starting power forward job? I'm not really sure how it works out. Now, again, this is a career type of night for McGruder, and we're adding him in deeper leagues. 20 teamers easy, 18, 16s probably in those ones to see what happens. But in a week's time, there's a legitimate chance that he's not even in the rotation when Winslow and Ellington and Johnson are back. I think we might be waiting a little bit longer for Waiters to come back. But that's the weirdness with this team. It is so hard to work out. Will it be Waiters? Will Tyler Johnson be out of the rotation? Bam Adebayo, Kelly Olynyk, Dion Waiters, Derek Jones Jr., Rodney McGruder. Who of these guys are going to be out? We know that Richardson will be in. We know Wade will be in. We know Dragic will be in. We know Whiteside will be in. And I have a fairly strong idea that Justice Winslow and Wayne Ellington will be as well. But after that, it's really tough to get a grasp on it. So I'm looking at this and going, that's pretty sexy from McGruder. But man, there's 4 of these guys out who play the 2, 3, 4 positions. and it's going to make it hard. He definitely won't be playing 34 minutes. I think we can write that down. And therefore, based on what we've seen from him in the past, he's not going to be a standard league guy. But shout out to Scooter for just an absolute, a massive, massive performance from him in this second game of the season. Guys, if you do own a business and you are looking for a new way to reach customers, your company could be mentioned right now. Podcast listeners are 60% more likely to interact with the sponsors that they hear on podcasts. Our demographic is 98% male, more educated, and earning more money than traditional media audiences. So have your company sponsor this podcast by emailing me at redrockfantasybasketball@gmail.com. Let's go into the young gun of the night.
Young gun of the night.
And today we're looking at Josh, the Hitman Hart of the Los Angeles Lakers. He was fantastic, getting 20 points, hitting 3 threes. In fact, he hit the Lakers' first 3 of the night in the third quarter. 4 rebounds, 1 assist, 3 steals and 2 blocks on 8 of 12 shooting, and 1 of 3 from the line. So there's a few things here we can look at and go, that's not realistic. 8 of 12 shooting, not realistic. 3 steals and 2 blocks, not realistic. But the fact that he looks significantly better than Kentavious Caldwell-Pope is not something that should be lost on anyone who listens to this podcast. I've been talking about it for a while and how I think he should be starting over KCP, and I think he is the better player. We had Tim Bontemps on a couple of weeks ago saying, I think he's a better young prospect than what the future MVP Kyle Kuzma is, and I've heard that echoed in other places around the league as well. Getting enough minutes for Hart to be a guaranteed standard league guy this season may be tough, depending on what they do with KCP. But the way that he played tonight in just 27 minutes, you have to stand up and take notice with Joshy. He's owned in 59% of leagues at the moment. I think he's probably a top 150 sort of a guy to pay attention to. So I'd be interested in grabbing him. Obviously, a lower priority than someone, say, like a Malik Monk, in my opinion. But Hart is an aggressive rebounder, a guy that can get steals, who can hit threes, who can score, and he's really polished out there. And I'd be all about grabbing him, assuming I'm making a smart move in terms of which guy I'm actually dropping. But Josh Hart was impressive. He showed why he should be the starting shooting guard, or at the very least the shooting guard who's getting the majority of the minutes. He fits well alongside these other young players, Brandon Ingram, Lonzo Ball, and of course alongside LeBron James. Let's move on now to the dud of the night. All right, the dud of the night is Kentavious Caldwell-Pope of the Los Angeles Lakers. Not a tough one here. 5 points in 27 minutes for KCP, 2 rebounds, 0 assists, 0 steals, 0 blocks. He didn't even have a single stat at halftime at all. No field goal attempts, no anything. Just a really, really putrid performance in those 27 minutes. He shouldn't have been getting even 27 minutes, but I suppose your other option there is Lance Stevenson, if it's not Hart, and I'd prefer KCP getting those minutes over Lance. It just wasn't a good night for him. He is not a standard league player, in my opinion. He is owned as if he is one, 79% ownership across Yahoo. He shouldn't be held on to. Now, he is a guy where I think you move on and open up that spot for streaming, or you grab one of these guys. You grab Hart, you grab Boban if you want to. I'm not really fussed, but I think he's a low upside guy who is probably going to struggle to finish inside the top 150. In fact, both myself and Kyle McEwen in our projections have him projected outside the top 150 at the moment. So, not more looking at 16-team league type of value, I think, for KCP for this coming season. Wasn't a great night for him today, and in line with what we were anticipating. The two highest the plus minus GOAT and the plus minus GOAT today. The positive side of the GOAT ledger goes to Ryan Arcidiacono of the Chicago Bulls, a net rating of plus 82.5. That is interesting. And the reason there is because the guy who gets the other plus minus GOAT was my man Cameron Payne, who was a negative 69.9.
Giggity!
Wasn't a great night for Cam Payne, and Arcidiacono benefited from that in terms of his net rating. I don't think there's anything to see with either of those guys there. Chris Dunn missed this game due to the birth of his child, so he will likely be back for the next game. But it's interesting to see the differentiation there between Arcidiacono and Cameron Payne when we're looking at those net ratings for the day. Injury report, thankfully, only one real injury to come out of today, and it's very, very minor. Otto Porter Jr. said that he did sprain his ankle during the game. He played it out. He said it felt fine after the game, but of course he also said that's probably adrenaline talking, so we will have to pay some attention to Otto. to see whether he does miss any time. I think we'll be pretty good here with Porter. I don't think there's anything to worry about, but I thought I'd mention it. There are a couple of hard falls, as there always are during games, but nothing major, nothing for us to majorly be worried about. Mo Harkless did play through his ankle issue. Didn't look the greatest out there, but he was able to get through. So realistically, it was a pretty nice and pretty good day in terms of injury or avoiding injury across the NBA. Let's now have a look at these games in a bit more detail. The first game we're going to take a look at is the Chicago Bulls and the Philadelphia 76ers. The Bulls inexplicably kept this one close, and just between you and me, all of these NBA games, man, the pace is so high across all these games, and a big part of that, as I talked about in the preseason, is the offensive rebound, shot clock reset to 14 instead of 24. We're seeing a lot more possession, so you're going to see a lot more stats inflated this season. We're also seeing, I think, a lot more assists at this early stage, but that seems a little bit... I haven't got the numbers on that. Let's put it that way. But the pace is definitely up. You're going to see some big numbers. It's going to be right across the league, so everyone's numbers are going to inflate. But it is something to pay attention to. The Bulls ended up losing by 19 points. The impressive performance from Chicago came from Zachary LaVine, who had 30 points, ludicrously efficient shooting, 58% from the field, which was only 29% from three. You'd imagine those two numbers to change, the threes to go up, the twos to go down. He was 75% on his twos. The 3 blocks are nice, and they won't happen again. But getting to the line, looking strong out there, I think LaVine has got a real chance to beat through his ADP as that scoring, but his defense still sucks, and the efficiency won't be this high. Punch Bob Shiplock, Bob Portis, 33 minutes as a starter, 20 and 11, a steal, a block, 3 threes. He has to be owned at this point. Lauri Markkanen coming back will probably have an impact on Portis. But at this point, he is clearly ahead of Jabari Parker, who only played 25 minutes, had 15 and 5. So that's decent from Jabari, and he's someone who I'd hold in most cases. But when Lauri comes back, if they don't want to play Jabari as a small forward, where's he going to get the minutes? With Carter, with Markkanen, with Portis, what is Jabari's playing time going to be? It is a real worry. As for Wendell Carter Jr., he did start in his NBA debut. I said it was going to be a pretty terrible matchup. It was. He did okay. 8-3-3 with a block in 20 minutes. Had some foul issues. You're not going up against Joel Embiid every night. So I think that Carter will be fine, and he is a 12-team league player. In my opinion, it will only get better from here on out. Robin Lopez, only the 18 minutes. And you think if there was any night where Lopez was going to play more than Carter, it would be against Embiid, but it didn't happen there. So that's encouraging for Carter's value moving forward. Talked about Arcidiacono, 8-4-8 as the backup point guard to Campaign. Dunn will be back next game. Interesting to see whether Hoiberg goes to Arcidiacono or does go to Payne. Obviously, Arcidiacono is ahead of Tyler Ulis at this point, who only played the 49 seconds. Justin Holiday, 10-4 as the starting small forward. You can leave that for very, very, very deep leagues, because when the hammer comes back, Denzel Valentine, he's going to be eating into that playing time too. On the Sixers, another triple-double for Ben Simmons, 13, 13, and 11 with 2 blocks. Hit all of his free throws, so that's a real positive. He's got a chance to be a first-round guy this season. Bob Cove, 20 points, 2 steals, 4 triples. That's what we want out of him. And Markelle Fultz, it was a disaster to start off, and I'm sure most of you wanted me to talk about Fultz here. But in contrast to the Boston game, where he played like 3 second-half minutes, he ended up with 32 total minutes in this game. And the stat line is okay. 12, 4, and 5 with 2 steals and a 3. But we have to use some context in that, because he was pretty terrible for 5 points in the first half. And when the game was out of reach, they really got him back into the game and tried to get his confidence up. Now, I think nearly all of this is a confidence issue. So that's a good move from the Sixers to go and do that. Could this be something that sparks him around the 32 minutes? And a 12, 4, 5, 2 steal line is positive. The percentages are bad, and that was always going to be the issue. Now, I think you have to be a little bit worried about Markelle. You have to be a little bit worried about whether he stays in this starting lineup, whether they stay with this weird rotation. Against the bad teams, they'll try and feed him, but against the good teams, they're not going to have that ability. They did get TJ McConnell right out of the rotation pretty much, under 5 minutes. So that's a positive for Fultz, and maybe this is the kickstart. He's right on the precipice to me in terms of whether he is someone that you hold on to or someone that you cut, and it is going to come down to which guys are available. But after a dreadful first half, a resurrecting fourth quarter, that probably buys him a game or two. But again, it depends on who we're talking about that's on the wire. If someone tweeted this at me, if someone's league, they dropped Jamal Murray, that's an easy swap. You go and drop Fultz and you add Jamal Murray. It's easy. Chetty Osman, Karis LeVert, I'd probably go and add both of those guys over Markelle, and I feel like I'm going to be using those guys' names quite a lot. But yeah, it is a tough one to grasp with Fultz because we've had some okay moments, some bad moments. It's about patience. In general, in fantasy leagues, I don't really care if I lose the first week of matchups. I always want to see how this all plays out, and that's sort of where I'm feeling. But you've got to make pounces on certain guys, but you've also got to make sure you're not dropping someone too early. So it is something to watch. Redick only played 24 minutes and had 10 points, while Landry Shamet, 12 points, all from 3, 4 triples, 2 steals, a block, looked really good, played TJ McConnell out of the rotation, played 29 minutes. But when we have Wilson Chandler back, he might find it a little bit harder to remain in the rotation. But if he can stay ahead of TJ McConnell, his shooting is really important, and that's something deep league people will want to pay attention to, ahead of Furkan Korkmaz as well. And again, wasn't expecting to see that from Landry Shamet just at this point in his early NBA career. Let's move on to the next game, I think. Yes, let's move on to that. It was the Washington Wizards and the Miami Heat. Really disappointing loss for the Wizards. The Heat were coming off a back-to-back after losing to the Orlando Magic. The Miami Heat get the victory on a last-second field goal by Kelly Olynyk. Now, Olynyk played only 15 minutes, but he was in there to close the game. And this is weird. Without James Johnson, Olynyk's played like 15 minutes a night, while McGruder has played over 30 minutes a night. Bam Adebayo and Hassan Whiteside both getting more playing time than Olynyk in both those games. So that's why I'm a little bit worried that when Johnson comes back, is Kelly out of the rotation, or will it be McGruder? I think if you've got Olynyk in a 12-team league, you can piss his ass off. I don't think you need to hold on to him. Apologies, sir. Some guy tweeted me today that my swearing was and my sound drops made the podcast unprofessional, and he has to delete the stream. So I apologize for that. But hey, if you want a podcast that isn't going to occasionally swear, don't listen to this one. I think Olynyk might be in trouble with the rotation. I think he's droppable. Joshie Richardson, got to talk about my mate there. 28 points, 4 rebounds, 5 assists, a steal, and a block, and 5 triples. And imagine if the shots actually went down. 38% only. He's not hitting them, but we heard Pat Riley. We heard Eric Spoelstra. We heard Josh Richardson in the offseason. I'm going to aim for more points, 18 points per game, big usage, primary offensive role. I mean, okay, maybe. No, it's true. Now waiters can come back and screw this up, but everyone else is deferring to Richardson, and he looks awesome. I think he's got top 50 written all over him. Somehow 92% ownership. Don't know what the hell the other 8% of people are doing. He looks great. The minutes are big. The role is huge. The free throw attempts are through the roof. He is just dominating the ball. We know what he does defensively. This is a real big, massive season coming for Joshie Richardson. Also, the Heat apparently have pulled the plug on Jimmy Butler negotiations, and then some outlets walked it back and said, for now. But with the way that Butler is shiploking his way up, is Richardson on that cheaper contract, younger player, maybe he's actually better value for this Heat team. Don't know. The Iron Shoulder, Goran Dragic, 8, 6, and 8 with a 1-1. 2 of 18 shooting is disastrous. Great game in the first night. Not so good here. I was pretty down on him. While Hassan Whiteside also really shit the bed. 9 and 10 in his 29 minutes. But the minutes is what's appropriate on the second half of a back-to-back. While Adebayo also struggled 4 and 9 in 17 minutes. Really just a stream fringe-ish 12-team league guy. But of course, if Whiteside goes, then it's all aboard the BAM train. For the Wizards, Johnny Wall, 26 points, 9 assists, 1 steal, 3 blocks. I think he's a clear mid-second round guy, clear top 20 player. That's where I drafted him. That's how you should be valuing him. This is back to peak John Wall. The 56% shooting's probably not realistic, but everything else was pretty impressive. While Otto Porter, you're worried that the 11% usage, is that even going to go down when Dwight Howard comes back? That's a worry. But still, 11 rebounds, 3 steals, and 3 blocks. Now, that sort of defensive proficiency is not something that can continue. So you worry that if he doesn't get defensive numbers, if he's just going to be that uninvolved in stuff, what's going to happen? That's a worry for me with Porter. Jeff Green.
My name is Jeff.
33 minutes for Jeff. This is the Jeff Green game of the year. 17 points, 2 triples, 2 blocks, and a steal without Dwight Howard. Huge amount of minutes for Jeffy. You're more of a stream guy. While Markieff Morris, get rid of him. He is not a 12-team league guy. 11 and 5 in 25 minutes. Jan Mahinmi played 12 minutes replacing Dwight Howard. He had foul troubles and talent issues. And I am officially out on Kelly Oubre. I don't think he's very good. He only played 20 minutes. He struggled again. Thomas Satoransky is better. Austin Rivers is better. Jeff Green is probably better at this point. Oubre is not a standard league guy. He's not a 14-team league guy. I'm out on him as an NBA player. I don't think he's ever going to be a top 100 fantasy guy, to be honest. Rivers got 25 minutes. That's going to really hurt Oubre. He's going to need 35 minutes to be close to the top 100, and that's not going to happen in Washington for Rivers. But he is going to have an impact on the value of other guys like maybe even Porter, but more specifically Big Cal Oubre. The last game of the night was the Lakers' debut of one LeBron James. LeBron played 37 minutes. He had 26 and 12 with 6 assists in the Lakers' 9-point defeat. He went to the line 9 times and hit 8 of them. He was great from the field. Strong performance from LeBron. He's going to be solid at that end of the first round type of an area. But then there's a lot of other weird performances here. Rajon Rondo, 32 minutes, 13, 4, and 11. Really good stuff from Rondo. He's still frustrating. I still don't think he's in their best lineup, but for now, he's a stream type of guy. It doesn't make me go and drop Lonzo Ball, who played only 19 minutes, 7 and 4. The shot still wasn't great. Hit both his free throws, so that's a great start. Still had a steal, hit a 3. I still think if you've got Lonzo, I'm holding on to him. He's still working his way back from injury. He will be the starting point guard at some point this year, but it's not going to be in this first bit of the year. Brandon Ingram, only 28 minutes, 16 points, 2 steals, 2 blocks, and 4 rebounds. People were massively high on this guy for this season. They're talking top 30, top 40. I can't see it with him. I think top 100. If he gets inside the top 100, I think that's a pretty good result for Ingram. Just with playing with these other guys. And then JaVale McGee, 13 and 8 with 3 blocks in 22 minutes. McGee should be owned. He should be owned over someone like Boban. If he's playing 22 a night, he is a must-own player, in my opinion. The future MVP, 15 and 5 in 29 minutes. Poor shooting. I talked about so much last year about how his shooting seemed unsustainable. He kept it up for most of the year. The 29 minutes, the lack of other peripheral numbers, I think we'll get to a stage, and we're not there yet, but I think we'll get to a stage this year where Kyle Kuzma is not a standard league player. Also, Lance Stevenson should not be in the rotation. He is trash, he's terrible, and he's a shit bloke. On to the Portland Trailblazers. Lillard, 28, 6 and 4, always plays well against the Lakers and did it again. But the big story here is, of course, Source Castillo of the Portland Trailblazers. Nick Stauskas, 27 minutes, 24 points on just 11 shots with 5 triples, 2 assists, and a steal. And we knew he was going to be in the rotation. We didn't know he'd played 27 minutes, and we didn't know that he'd shoot 64% from the field. So there are a couple of things there that are definitely going to go down, the efficiency and the playing time. But as a rotation guy, as a deeper league guy, he could always play. We saw that in Michigan. He had flashes of that in Philadelphia, but consistency was a problem. If this is the right environment for him, it is something to watch out for. But of course, he's not going to take over CJ McCollum, and he's not taking over Dame Lillard. Seth Curry, his first game in over a year, 16 minutes, 5 points there. If you did some reason grab him in a 12-teamer, just on the hope that he was going to snag all of those backcourt minutes, then you can move on there. Well, how's the Chief?
Sometimes maybe good, sometimes maybe shit.
Yeah, he was shit. 5 points in 27 minutes with 6 rebounds. We had, just poor performances. More minutes there for Stauskas by pushing Mo Harkless up to the 4 a little bit as well. Well, Harkless only 18 minutes, 7 and 6, but 3 blocks. I think he is a borderline standard league guy as well. Brings the defense, but he just limits at upside. I also want to talk about my man, Zach Collins. Now, I was big on Zach Collins in the last year's draft, and he looked lost at Summer League. He started to come on at the end of last season. I said, I can understand a scenario where the Blazers just let Nurkic go in order to get Collins in there. Now, they didn't let Nurkic go, but they did let Ed Davis go. And Zach Collins came out here, played 26 minutes, more than Yusuf Nurkic, who only played 17. He did have foul trouble, Yusuf, but 6 points, 6 rebounds, and 6 blocks for Zach Collins. This is the appeal of him. A rebounding, 3-point shooting, shot-blocking, efficient big man. That's what he could profile as. We saw flashes of it, but this was the first time we go, Zach Collins is actually good. And I think a lot of people noticed that today. He's not someone that I'm grabbing in a 12-team league, but in a dynasty format, I'm pretty interested. I think that there's a chance that he is a starting center for this team in the next year or two. Probably not this season, but maybe next season, irrespective of Nurkic's contract. And he was impressive. As for Nurk, you're disappointed with 16 minutes, but if you, at the start of the day, someone said to you, Yusuf Nurkic is going to come out with 16 and 9, he's going to be 100% from the field, from the line, 50% from the field, and get 2 steals, you go, I'm happy with that. And then someone says, it's 17 minutes. Man, why is he only playing 17 minutes? But you're happy with the overall production. You're just worried now, is Collins going to get more minutes? I don't think it's going to be an every night thing. Again, the fouls did contribute to what Nurkic was able to do, but there's going to be these moments. Nurkic is going to get injured. He's going to sook. He's going to have nights where he's outplayed by Zach. On the majority of the time, though, he will play more minutes than this. Not a lot else, I don't think, to talk about with the old Portland Trailblazers, but some interesting performances. No one was expecting the Blazers to be driven by the Stauskas-Collins combination, but I guess here we are. Here we are indeed. All right, let's go on now and move on and talk some DFS. Perfect lineup over on DraftKings. Zach LaVine, 45.25. Stauskas, 34. Benny Simmons, 54.75. Punchbob Shipbloke had 43.75. Embiid, 60. The Hitman Josh Hart had 37. Joshy Richardson had 46. Need more Joshes in there, to be honest. And Scooter McGruder, 41.5 for a total of 362 and 362.25. That cost $48,800. And then we go to the perfect lineup on. I'm all lost with my new setup here. Where are we? On FanDuel, that's the one. And we are looking at Ben Simmons, 51.1. Johnny Wall, 52.1. McGruder, 39.6. Josh Hart, 39.3. Josh Richardson, 44.3. A lot of crossover here. Jeff Green, 30.3. Punchbob, 42.2. Zach Collins, 33.2. And Joel Embiid, 61.9 for a total of 394. And that cost $59,100 dues. We have got a 9-game slate for DFS coming up for Friday. We're going to be looking mainly at FanDuel pricing on today's show. More focus there, but still talking DraftKings as well. The first game we look at, the Charlotte Hornets and the Orlando Magic. The Hornets are favored by 2. The total is 217 points. The Hornets went really, really small ball in that last game against the Bucks. I think if the Magic are if the Magic are going to go out there and run Nick Vucevic and Mohamed Bamba
1, 2, 3, 4, 5
as a front court combo, it's going to be pretty hard to counter that with Marvin Williams and Michael Kidd-Gilchrist. Might be hard on the other end for the Magic to try and stop it, but that's something to pay attention to. We might not get quite as many small ball lineups. It's also Steve Clifford coaching against his former team. Injury-wise, I think we're pretty okay in this game in terms of questionable players or anything along those lines. At point guard, DJ August and Jaren Grant for Orlando. Grant outplayed Augustine in the last game, so I think that Grant at 3,900 is worth a look as a GPP player, whereas Augustine at 4,700, you'd only want to throw it into a tournament, but you wouldn't feel very confident despite the cheap price. It's going to be an up-and-down situation with those guys all season. I think Kemba Walker killed it, 52 points in Game 1. 8,800, it's a bit of a price rise. It's okay as a matchup against Augustine and Grant. I'm not loving him at that salary. I don't think he can go out and drop 40 again like he did against the Bucks, but Kemba's pretty good, so he's not a horrible pick. Not a horrible pick to go out there and use it. Or Tone Parker, we can leave that alone. Shooting guard, Jezelam at 5,300. Really tough to rely upon that, so we won't. While Evan Fournier looking for a bounce back. He's at 6,000. Now, he wasn't that great in the first game, but still did put up 25 FanDuel points, and that gives you a level of confidence. I'm not super into it, but I feel okay about him being able to get back and give you a low-end 5x, like a 30, a 31, without pushing up or with a huge ceiling. Malik Monk killed it Game 1. He's at 5,500 now. He dropped 35 in that first game. I think that I'm not ready to look at him as a guaranteed cash play at that sort of a price, but I do think that we should be including him in all of our tournament-type discussions. Just expecting another 35-point performance. I'm not sure we really look into that too closely. While Terry Ross, he had 32 on the back of a ton of defensive numbers. Not ready to go back there either. Johnny Isaacs at 52, a disappointing first game. Foul trouble limited him. He's still at 5,200. I'm going to ease off on that one. While Johnny Simmons is at 4,800. I'm not interested there either. In fact, there's not a ton of value I like in this game on FanDuel. Batum, 7,100, too expensive. Miles Bridges, MKG, no. At power forward, we've got Az Gordon, 8,400 for Azza. That's an $1,100 price rise on FanDuel. He was great in Game 1, 44 points. I worry about how Marvin Williams is going to be able to stop him. Maybe they throw Michael Kidd-Gilchrist on him, but I think Gordon at 8,400, I think there's some value in that. I think you can look at him as being relatively solid at that sort of price. Maybe there's not massive room for upside, but it's okay. And then with the centers, Nick Vucevic at $8,000, a little bit disappointing in Game 1, and I worry that the rotation may limit him, so I'm not loving him at 8,000. 7,000, I'd feel much better about Vooch there. I think he can approach 40, but I'm not super confident in that. Zella and Hernan Gomez, I'll leave those guys. While Bumba's at 4,800. It's a big $800 price rise. The minutes, 25 last game, had 27 points. That's obviously very impressive. But at 4,800, I think that if you're looking for that for cash value, I think you're looking in the wrong place there with Mohamed Bamba. Could be wrong though. Over on DraftKings, a little bit more value. Jaren Grant at 3,500. I feel like he's going to be able to get that level back on DraftKings. You've got Fournier and Malik Monk over there as nice tournament at 4,700. Evan Fournier at 5,200. Value for both of those guys there, but still more tournaments. I'm not fully locked in on those guys being cash options. Let's move on to the next game. We've got the Brooklyn Nets and the New York Knicks. The Nets are actually favored by 3, and the total is 218.5. Rondé Hollis-Jefferson apparently is healthy, but now he's having a baby. Well, not himself, but his partner is having a baby, so he is considered questionable for this game. Mitchell Robinson, I didn't mention he had an ankle injury in the last game. That's something to watch. Courtney Lee with his neck injury as well. We've already got the Alan Crabb has been listed as probable, so the blue swimmer is likely back for the Brooklyn Nets there as well. So a few changes in their rotation. At point guard, D'Angelo Russell was obviously very disappointing, but he has a history of being that guy who has that poor game, gets benched, and then comes out the next game and rebounds pretty well. So that's why I like him as a tournament pick. D'Angelo, 6,800 for him. I'd be looking at that. While Frank Ntilikina at 5,100. He played a lot of minutes in the Knicks opener against the Hawks. It only generated 24 FanDuel points, so I'm not looking at him as a strong cash play, but nab a few steals. That can really turn that number on its head pretty quickly. Spencer Dinwiddie, 5,500. Killed it in game 1, 36 points there. Great value at that price, but if I'm going to say that I think Russell's going to get minutes back again, then Dinwiddie's probably going to be the guy that loses those minutes. I'll fade him. While Karis LeVert is up to 7,400. It's a big price rise over on FanDuel. He dropped 41, so fair enough. Not sure I love him at 7,400. The Knicks defense doesn't particularly scare me too much with him, so I could consider using him. The price is maybe... I know he's going to produce. I feel good about his floor, but do I feel good enough about it at 7,400? That's where I guess I have the concern with LeVert. But it's not a bad play. Well, Timmy Hardaway is at $7,000. He killed it in game 1. He's going to get tons of usage again. I feel like I think he's got value to go and use. Well, Joe Harris is going to be hurt by the return of the blue swimmer. Another name we got to pay attention to is Alonzo Trier. 3,900 for Alonzo, 23 points in the opener. If Courtney Lee is out, I'd be on the Trier train here. And the blue swimmer's at 5,200. Tournaments only for that guy in general. Small forward Mario Hezonja Itzumi is at 5,300. Actually looked better. He looked better than he did in the preseason. Who knows if Fizdale's going to trust him more? I have my doubts. But Hezonja at 5,300. I think we'll leave that and just see how that goes. While Jared Dudley, Lance Thomas, other small forwards we can leave alone. The Fort, Kevin Knox, 4,700, looked lost in the NBA debut. Off the bench again, I'm not sure there's value there. While Hollis Jefferson at 6,700 and Noah Vonleh at 4,000. I think we can look elsewhere. At center, Jarrett Allen, 39 points against the Pistons. And now he has to go up against Enes Kanter. 6,800 for Allen, so a pretty significant price rise for him. It doesn't completely dissuade me from using Jarrett at this stage, but he's solid enough. But that price rise, a $1,200 price rise, is something that I will probably leave alone. While Enes Kanter's at 7,500, I feel like Kanter's got a really strong floor, and against Allen should be able to do what he needs to do. But he did only play 27 minutes in the opener against the Hawks, and that probably scares me off him a bit there. Ed Davis, not really much to love about that value. On DraftKings, LeVert's at 6,300, so I'm way into that as opposed to FanDuel. Jarrett Allen at 6,000 as well. I think they're both really strong cash and tournament options. D'Angelo, the same story as I mentioned, while Alan Crabb at 4,200. That is a really appealing tournament type sort of a play. Great upside at that 4,200 for the blue swimmer. Even if the minutes are a little bit low, he can get out there and hit some shots and put up some numbers in limited minutes. Enes Kanter's at 7,400. On DraftKings, it's not looking spectacular, and the 73 for Tim Hardaway is nowhere near as appealing as what he appears to be over on FanDuel. Let's go to the next game. It is the Minnesota Timberwolves versus the Cleveland Cavaliers. The Wolves are favoured by, what are they favoured by? 8.5, and the total is 223.5 points. I would assume that Karl Anthony Towns plays more than the 22 minutes that he played last game, and we hope he gets more than the 7 field goal attempts. But definitely a frightening scenario rostering him at this point. The point guard battle, Georgie Hill's at 5,700. He dropped 27 last game. I'm not sure he's got a huge upside, but I do think that there's a relatively solid floor for Hill at this point. While Jeff Teague,
My name is Jeff.
Jeff is at $7,000. A very nice game one for him against the Spurs. Against the Cavs is probably an easier proposition. So I'm okay with Teague going back there to 7,000. Tyus Jones, no. Colin Sexton, also, let's have that as a no as well. Derrick Rose is interesting. He's interesting in the fact I know he's going to play and he's going to get shots. He's not generally going to do anything with them. But at $4,000, if sometimes those shots go in, there might be something there for Derrick Rose. Could he get at $4,000 a 24, 25-point night? Maybe, and that would be something to look at. But it's that cheap price on FanDuel to drop the lowest score. Maybe he enables you to fit a good roster around him. Jordy Clarkson's at 43. Nah, I'm good. Jim Butler's at 9,500. He had 50 points in only 32 minutes. That's a pretty strong return from Butler. The matchup here is a lot better as well than going against the Spurs. Going against Ty Lue is a different proposition. 9,500 for Jim. I'm still not fully ready to buy in there. But that game one return was good, and if he gets more minutes, then there is value. You know, a decent enough cash guy. We don't know if the plumber J.R. Smith is going to play at this point. For small forwards, Chetty Osman's at 6,200. He was excellent, 38 points in game one. The salary has gone up. Has it gone up enough to turn me off? It's 1,700. He was at 4,500 on FanDuel, and hopefully you guys all used him on that opening day. 6,200 takes away a lot of the upside. He's not a must-roster guy or anything like that, but I still think he's pretty useful at that price, while Wiggins at 6,800 was all right in game one, but not at that sort of a salary. I think you can do better there. Larry Nance is questionable at this point. He's at 5,700. I don't want to go in that direction. At power forward, Kevin Love at $8,000. Did not shoot the ball well at all in the first game. He had a true shooting of about 38% and still managed 30 points. So you could very easily see him getting another 10 points based on just the more shots going in, because he had the minutes, he had the touches, he had the usage. So I like him at $8,000 here against Minnesota, his former team. Taj Gibson and Tone Tolliver not really. At center, Tristan Thompson got a lot of minutes and didn't do much with them, so I'll fade that. While Townsie's at $10,100. It's an $800 price drop. He has done well against the Cavs in the past. I'm only willing to use him as a tournament thing. If he is still not there mentally and checking out and being passive, then it is a risk, and I'm not willing to use him in a cash game at this point. While Gorgie Jing benefited from Towns' fouls last game, had 30 points, but that's probably not going to be a likely scenario again. It could be. I just don't think it's that likely. On DraftKings, Osman and Hill are two of your real cash staples. I like Kevin Love a lot at 8,000. Towns at 9,100. That's a pretty cheap price. Still, I have those same sort of reservations. And 8,100 for Jim Butler is a pretty strong price, I believe, over on DraftKings. So something we can use there, no doubt. Let's go on to the next one. It is the Boston Celtics and the Toronto Raptors. The Raptors are favored by 3. The total is 207 points. Injury-wise, I think we're okay. The Jedi, OG Anunoby.
Hello there.
And Delon Wright are both question marks. Anunoby is probable with that orbital bruise, while Delon Wright is still dealing with his issue that caused him, the leg issue that caused him to miss the opener. If Delon is out, it really boosts the value of Fred VanVleet and Danny Green as well. While if Anunoby is out, then we get more minutes from Pascal Siakam also. The point guards, there's a little bit here for the point guards. Kyle Lowry was fantastic. Someone told me that I hate Kyle Lowry because I didn't mention him on yesterday's podcast. I don't hate Kyle Lowry at all. 8,200. He had 44 points in that first game. A really strong performance from Lowry. I think that there's some value here for him. The Boston defense is a worry, so that probably pushes him more towards a tournament for me. He has struggled against Boston in the past also. As for Rozier, 4,700. A strong game from Rozier in the opener, but the 24 points he had against Philadelphia wouldn't really be enough to bring back value at 4,700, so I'm going to leave Rozier alone. While Freddie VanVleet at 4,400, I like the upside play of Van Vliet here if we do have Delon sitting out. So I'd consider him for tournaments. As for Kyrie at $8,000, a disappointing opening night. He'll be better than that, but I don't feel good about rostering Celtics guys at this point. Shooting guards, Dan Green, 4,900. 29 points is a great return from Green's first game. I think the tournament upside is clear, and if Delon is out, it solidifies value. More just looking tournaments for him now, while Jaylen Brown and Marcus Smart, disappointing openings, not cash type of guys, not really feeling much about them at this point as well. And we can talk about this Celtics having strong defense. The Raptors have got a pretty bloody good defense as well with the fun guy.
I'm a fun guy.
And of course, Danny Green and Kyle Lowry putting pressure on the smalls of the other team. Now, speaking of the fun guy, Kawhi Leonard, he is at 9,400, 38 points in 37 minutes. The efficiency wasn't there in the opener, but I'm okay with going back to Kawhi at 9,400. I think we're talking probably a 40-point minimum, which isn't a bad floor. 55, 60-point upside. I'm really into Kawhi here. While Anunoby, no thanks. Gordon Hayward at 71, probably a little bit too high with his minutes limit at this point as well. The power forwards, Siakam and Tatum, 5,000 for Pascal, 6,400 for Tatum. A really strong performance from Jace in the first game. I'm not sure I'm ready to go back to it. People will say, you're a hater, you don't like Jason Tatum. I do worry that is he going to be able to maintain that level of usage? Will Kyrie and Hayward not hit any of their shots and defer to him like they did in that game one? I have my doubts. I'd look at him as a tournament guy, but that's probably about it. Marcus Morris, I don't think he's repeating that performance either. At center, Al Horford. Actually, what's Serge Ibaka listed? He's a power forward as well, Serge. He had 32 in the first game at 5,600. That's some value there. I'm not totally ready to buy back into Serge. At center, Horford's at 6,700. Great game against Embiid. 29 points. Not worth it at that sort of a salary. Valanciunas at 5,900. I think his minutes actually might be lower against this Celtics team, so I'm out on him as well, while Baines is at minimum salary for a pretty good reason. Over on DraftKings, Kawhi at 85 is strong. Lowry at 75. Irving is down to 6,600. So I like that a lot on DraftKings for Kyrie. I think there's great value in him there, especially for tournaments. While Rozier at 44, you're looking more as a GPP sort of a guy. That's probably about it in terms of great standout plays. Danny Green has a little bit of value. Jason Tatum at 65. I'm more out on that on DraftKings than I am over on FanDuel. Let's go on to the next game. It's the Sacramento Kings and the New Orleans Pelicans. The Pelicans are favored by 11, the largest spread of the day. The total is 229, also the largest of the day. Davis and that front court of Nick Mirotic and Julius Randle should be able to feast on the Sacramento Kings. Huge high pace. The blowout risk is a real problem on the road for the Kings. It is a concern, but I think we still have some value, but it's probably leaning it more towards a GPP than a cash game. The point guards, though, De'Aaron Fox at 6,500, I like that for cash. I think that he is fine. 38 minutes and 42 points in the opener. He doesn't need to do those things to really get that value back. While Kevin Farrell at 3,900 started 30 minutes, only 14 points. He can be better. He's an interesting GPP option. While Alfred Payton had the triple-double, had 39 points, and at 7,000, that's good value. The minutes were encouraging. He is in play. It's a good matchup for Alfred, but I'm not totally sold on him being a must-roster guy. But I think he's definitely in your pool of players. Shooting guards, you've got Budrick Hield at 6,300. Decent enough game from Bud in the opener against Utah. A completely different scenario in a real high-paced situation against his former team. Go revenge games if you want. I think I'm more looking as a tournament option there, while Mason, Clark, and Shumpert don't appeal. Small forwards, Justin Jackson, no. Nemanja Bjelica at $5,000. Strong performance from Bjelica in the opener as the starting power forward. 34 points there. Another opportunity to get to 30, I think, here. I think at 5,000, he's actually relatively valuable. While Etuan Moore at 48, I'd spend the 200. I'd take Bjelica over Etuan at this stage. Power forwards. Julius Randle, will start with him, and I'll get to him because he's a center. Sorry, Nick Mirotic, 7,200, just killed it in the first game. You're worried that he's not going to be able to maintain that level of shooting efficiency, but he was very, very impressive. You always want to keep him in your tournament pool. While Anthony Davis, this is the conundrum, 13,300. He dropped 80 on your head in that first night. Fantastic against Houston, but if it is a blowout, do we see Davis play 32 minutes? 31 minutes. And at 13,000, that is, I said when it gets to 12,000, it does make me do a little bit of the pullback. When you get to 13, that's like really? Can I? And I'm not sure you can. It's so hard to go past Anthony Davis, and on other sites, he's going to be a guy that you're going to build your lineup around, but that is a pretty bloody high price, and I'd probably only be doing it on FanDuel when I'm looking at tournaments, just because if that goes wrong in cash, you're screwed. In a tournament, you're looking to hit the highest upside, and he could get 100. But man, it's so expensive. Marvin Bagley, Harry Giles, just invisible in the first game. Didn't play hardly at all, combined for under 16 fantasy points together for FanDuel fantasy points. Their salaries have dropped. I wouldn't mind throwing Bagley into a GPP. He seems pissed already at Dave Yeager. Took one game, so that's going great as well. So we'll see how that works out. But of course, I don't have the greatest level of confidence in that turning around. While Cauley Stein was excellent against Rudy Gobert, 46 points. Can he back it up against Anthony Davis? It's a tough matchup. I am not ready to believe fully in Willie Cauley-Stein at this point, while Julius Randle is dealing with a plantar fascia injury. He had to leave the court a couple of times in the opener, came back and played through it. He's listed as probable. He's at 7,800. I'm not really liking that price tag and a little bit worried about that foot, so I think that's fade territory for Julius. On DraftKings, Drew Holiday 7,200. I really like him on DraftKings. I don't like him on FanDuel. De'Aaron Fox at 65 is strong too, cash and tournaments, while Peyton and Ferrell I think are more of your GPP guys. Anthony Davis at 11,600. That's fine. Into that on DraftKings for Davis. 11,600 is a pretty strong price for Tone, so I think that's cash usable. Randall at 71, still the concern. Mirotic at 7,000, great tournament option as well. And I do like Willie Cauley-Stein, who comes in at 6,300 over on the old DraftKings. Let's go to the next game. It's the Memphis Grizzlies. Yeah, here we go. And the Atlanta Hawks. Atlanta traveling to Memphis. The Grizzlies are favored by 7.5 points. The total is 209 and a half here. Terrible teams. Trae Young, the artist formerly known as Taurean Prince, have a real opportunity here for Atlanta. And what sort of nonsense is JB Bickerstaff going to trot out? That is the big question. Let's look at the point guards. I love Trae Young, 6,100. Only had 25 in that game against the Knicks. I think he can do better here against this Grizzlies team. I'm in on him. While Jeremy Lin at 44, I'm out. Conley's at 7,900. That is way too expensive for me for Mick. Just not feeling that at all. I think I'd fade that pretty strongly. Shelvin Mack played an inexplicable 30 minutes in the opener. Had 13 points, which is very explicable. 3,800 for Shelvin. I think we'll leave that alone. Vincy Carter, listed as a shooting guard, is actually Atlanta starting power forward because the Baptist John Collins is out. The Undertaker Dwayne Dedman is out as well. And now the Wizard Amari Spellman is doubtful. So Vince is going to get some minutes. He's at 3,700. He was okay in the opener. It's a tournament type of option because if he gets pushed into 27 minutes, he gets 14 or 15 points and gets a couple of rebounds, it could happen. It's a differentiator, I think, is a way to put it with the lower score dropped situation. Marshawn Brooks is at 41. Kent Bazemore's at 59. Not really getting all that excited about them, nor with Dylan Brooks, who played, again, an inexplicable 6 minutes in the opener. Sure, he had -1 FanDuel points, but it's still nonsense that he played that little. At small forward, DeAndre Bembry at 3,600. A strong opener, 17 points in 23 minutes without much offense. An opportunity, again, with some injuries here in Atlanta for Bembry at 3,600. I think it's absolutely worth looking at him in a tournament. Chandler Parsons likely to start again at 4,100, while Kyle Anderson's at 5,400. Anderson disappointed in the first game, as did Bickerstaff. I don't think you'd be looking to go back to Anderson at 54. Parsons at 41 is a low upside, low floor type of a play, so it's a fade. The artist formerly known as Taurean Prince, though, 7,100. Strong game against the Knicks. Still only yielded 31 points, which isn't quite where it needs to be for 7,100. So I'm not loving him on FanDuel as much as I like him on some of the other sites. But of course, we should feel pretty confident about Prince's floor at this point. For the power forwards, JaMychal Green's at 5,100. He just got that value in the last game, 25 points. Nothing exciting. While Jaren Jackson Jr., Triple J, he dropped almost 30 and now is up to 6,100. Is that too high? I'd probably say yes. Centers, Alex Len, 5,400. Foul problems limited him. He's got no other competition for minutes. He's just got to stay on the court. 5,400, that makes him a great tournament play, while Marcus Gasol at 8,300. I think that's too high for Gasol. He had 34 against the Pacers. Solid outing, but not when you're spending 8,300. There are better ways, I believe, for you to go there. On DraftKings, Trae Young at 56, Prince at 62, Triple J at 46. I think they're all much, much stronger on DraftKings, and you look at them as cash options. Parsons at 37 has a little bit more upside at that price on DraftKings also, while Conley at 68 and Gasol at 72 are also in play. This game should be closer than the spanking that the Grizzlies got in Game 1, so maybe they push to 34, 35 minutes, and they've got a real chance to exceed that value on DraftKings. On FanDuel, probably not as much, or I'm not as confident in it happening anyway. Next up, we look at the Milwaukee Bucks. They are hosting the Indiana Pacers. The Bucks are favored by 3.5. The total is 216.5. You'd expect to see more of the Indiana Pacers players out there after that ass kicking against the Grizzlies. They didn't have to go out there for very long at all, so I'd expect more minutes, more production from these Pacers guys. Eric Bledsoe had 27 points in 34 minutes against the Hornets at 7,200. In a not great matchup, I think I'm going to let Bledsoe go. Victor Oladipo, Darren Collison, when he plays, are all pretty good defensively, so I'm not sure I'm really interested in Eric Bledsoe here. Daz Collison's at 46. He had 6 points last game. No, thank you. And Corey Joseph, a real surprise to be sure, but it was a welcome one. 30 points for Corey Joseph, 4,200. Yeah, no. Well, I don't think that's happening again. Now, Vic Oladipo, 8,400. He dropped $400 because of that game. 27 points only in only 26 minutes. This is a perfect opportunity to get back on Vic and go, bang, let's go. Let's take advantage of that algorithm that dropped his price down. Brogo is at 5,400. I see no upside in Brogdon, while Dante DiVincenzo is at 3,600. Played a lot of minutes, 22. Only yielded 14 points, so it's a tournament play at best. Chrissy Middleton, strong opener, 43 points, but $8,000 salary for Middle. Yeah, maybe. Give me 8,400 on Victor Oladipo pretty clearly. Tyreek Evans, 6,900. In a game where he only played 23 minutes, he had 27 points. A good start from Evans. He racks up stats everywhere he goes. That price is not restrictive. I'll be okay with getting him back out there, while Bojan's at 45. We know Bojan Bogdanovic is always a GPP type of a guy. Giannis Antetokounmpo, 11-8. He was at 12 last game. He gave you 54 points, 11-8. Fine, let's go. I'm very, very into using Antetokounmpo at that sort of a price tag. Well, Dougie McDirt, $100, $200 maybe? Is that what you'd pay for him? Probably. Power forward, Ersan Ilyasova, 4,500. A strong game from Ersan, but he did it in 29 minutes. Is that his absolute ceiling? I think it might be, and that's why I'm not massively into Ersan here. While Domantas Sabonis killed it, a big double-double, 32 points. He's at 5,600 now. I don't see a huge upside. I don't see all that solid floor, depending on what they do with Miles Turner, so that's somewhat of a fade. Deuce Young, also not interesting. At center, Miles Turner's the big question mark, 6,200. I don't think you can go into this game with any confidence in Miles Turner. He blocked 4 shots, great. Gave you 30 FanDuel points. It's more of a GPP type of a scenario. How's he going to fare against the Bucks? He's just too wildly inconsistent to have any sort of reliability. And Brook Lopez at 5,600. I just don't know how Budenholzer is going to use him in this game. So probably going to fade both of those centers. On DraftKings, Yanni is at 11,000, still really strong. There are some other more stronger value types on DraftKings, but that's still really good. Oladipo at 84, Bledsoe at 66 is more appealing on DraftKings as well, and Tyreek at 61. Some of those guys' values carrying over between the two sites. Let's move on to the next game we're going to talk about, the Golden State Warriors and the Utah Jazz. Rick Rubio jammed his thumb in that game for the Jazz, and that may have resulted in some of his lower minutes. Injury-wise, Andre Iguodala is questionable. We're pretty stunned if he played with that calf tightness, to be honest. Steph is at 9,600. Historically has struggled against Utah. 35 points in the last 3 times out against them. Obviously, really good opener. 55 points for Steph against the Thunder. I think that's his fade territory for Curry. It's not a wrong decision to go for him, but 9,600, I think I'd fade him. Ravishing Rick at 6,300. Also, the guy that told me the sound drops are unprofessional, I use it so I can take like a 3-second break from talking. That's it. 6,300 for Rick Rubio. Yeah, that's a fade. Dante Exum, strong opener, but still not a great fantasy point producer, so I don't think there's much value there. Shooting guard, the Donovan Mitchell, $8,000. Wasn't the best debut from him for this season. I think he's more of a tournament guy. I'm not feeling comfortable in cash, while Clay at 6,400, I really don't feel comfortable with using Klay Thompson at that sort of a salary. He did come down in price, but there are just so many other options on FanDuel that aren't as highly priced. Alec Burks had a nice game, 4,100, one of your tournament guys, killing it all preseason, killing it off season, killed it again in the regular season. You got to start paying attention to this guy that's coming in and just lighting it up whenever he's on the court, and that's what Alec Burks is doing. So I think you got to look at that with something there. Jingle and Joe's at 6,300, a great start from Ingles. Not sure 6,300 is a valuable price, while Jay Crowder, you love the minutes he got against the Warriors. Does he find his way into even more minutes? I think that's possible. But is he really that high level? Is his floor high enough? No. Is his ceiling high enough? Probably not. So I'm not really sure about him. While Durant's at 10-2, he's rock solid. We know what we're going to get out of him. You like him for cash, and he's a tournament guy nearly always. Derek Favors, you can leave that alone. Draymond Green, 7,400. No interest in Draymond at any price over 7,000 on FanDuel. No interest at all. While Kevon Looney killed it, game one, 33 points. He's at 4,100. Lovely as a tournament option. You're going to have Damian Jones starting again, but Looney playing the backup behind him and behind Draymond as well. Probably not going to get to that level, but he is a fiend for the defensive numbers, and when those come, then the FanDuel points rack up pretty quickly. At center, Gobert killed it in the opener, 44 points, but historically centers against the Warriors and Gobert have struggled. So 8,700 for Rudy is probably on the high side, while Damo Jones is at 4,600 after his impressive season opener against Steven Adams. But Damian Jones has got a history of playing well against Steven Adams and terribly against everybody else. So I'd put him into the GPP pool, and that's it. While Jordy Bell, really hard to feel good about him going up against Gobert, especially with the way that Steve Kerr used him in the opener. On DraftKings, there's not a lot that stands out here. You could consider Don Mitchell. I think Clay at 68 is not bad. Jay Crowder at 46 has a little bit of upside, but nothing massively stands out on DraftKings when you compare it to FanDuel. Not a game that I'm super targeting. The 218 total is all right. Close spread gives you something there, and you can maybe go with a Curry Mitchell, stack, and they just have a shootout. That's a possibility for a tournament, but nothing that's sort of standing out in isolation in this game. The last game of the night is the Oklahoma City Thunder and the LA Clippers. On the injury report, which the NBA does have official injury reports, they put out at 1:30, 5:30, and 8:30 p.m. Eastern, so you can find them on the NBA site. They're really informative. They do have Westbrook listed as out at the moment. Now, in the past, each team used to put out their own game notes, and it was a little bit tough to rely upon those designations. If someone was listed as out, we generally go to doubtful for them because there was plenty of times the guys listed as out would come in. So at this point, I've got Westbrook as doubtful as returning from his knee injury, but it is something we're going to pay attention to quite clearly. So if Westbrook is out, then that means more Dennis Schroeder and more Paul George for the Oklahoma City Thunder. The Clippers are actually favored by 1.5, and the total is 215.5. Again, unlikely we're going to see Westbrook back. Pat Beverly was terrible in game one. He's at 5,100. I think he'll be better than he was, but I don't think he'll be worth that price. While Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, loved what I saw. It wasn't a great FanDuel points sort of performance where he had 22. At 4,500, the salary's risen up too much where I think that maybe that ceiling has been capped. And Ray Felton, no. Shooting guard, Dennis Schroeder, 7,000. Let's go on Dennis. He had 47 in the opener. I think another 40-point performance is on the cards. A Schroeder-Oladipo backcourt on FanDuel, I think, is a reasonable combination given the salaries of those guys. Some significant value in both of them. Lou Williams, Terry Ferguson, Alex Abrines, Avery Bradley. Not one of that group really appeals to me at all. Paul George does, 9,244 in the opener. I think you feel good about a floor for him. He's got a 55-point upside. I'm all about Paul George with Westbrook likely missing. While the Rooster, Danilo Gallinari, 6,500 for him. An okay opening night. Still only 26 FanDuel points. More of a tournament type guy. Has done well against the Thunder before. You can factor that in even though the teams are quite different. There's something there with him, but nothing super spectacular. Toby Harris is at 8,100. I think that's priced right on the right mark, meaning he doesn't stand out as tremendous value. You can use him, and you can feel confident in his floor, but not loving the upside. Patrick Patterson, Jeremy Grant, the table Montrezl Harrell, a whole bunch of $4,000-ish type power forwards, and none of them really appeal to me. If it's anyone, it's going to be Harrell, but 4,600 is the highest. Actually, no, Grant's at 4,800. It's probably just a little bit too high to get that value back. Centers, Steven Adams, 7,400 for Steve-O, 40 points in the opener. I'm ready to go back to him here. Gortat, I don't think is going to handle him very well. Boban Marjanovic, Montrezl Harrell, I don't think they're going to handle Steve Adams very well. Now, as for Boban, He had 26 points in that game against the Nuggets. He's at $4,000 now. If you believe in Boban, by all means use him. I think that we are more likely to have him playing 6 or 7 minutes rather than the 18 that he played against Denver. I could be very wrong about Boban. I'm just not ready to look at him as a must roster guy. Gortat's at 4,300, and that is a clear fade to me. On FanDuel, on DraftKings, the Roosters at 59, love that. Shea is at 3,800, so Gilgeous-Alexander at that price is really, really strong. Yeah, Paul George, Toby Harris, Dennis Schroeder, Steve Adams, they're all really strong on DraftKings as well. A ton of value in this game on the old DK. Now, wrapping up today, let's go through my studs and values for the 5 major providers that I talk about. On DraftKings, my stud of the day is the fun guy.
I'm a fun guy.
Kawhi, 8,500. A tougher matchup against Boston, but I think he's still too cheap. The value play, I think, is Trae Young at 5,600. Love the minutes, love the opportunity, love the opponent. That's a good spot for Trae Young. On FanDuel, my start of the day is Kawhi again, 9,400, and my value play is Trae Young at 6,100. Both of those guys project out pretty well. On Yahoo, my stud is Paul George at $37, with Westbrook looking like he is out again. And for my best value play, it's Chetty Osman, who is still minimum salary, so you've got to take advantage of that. On Yahoo, I think he's going to be really highly owned, maybe 80% cash on Yahoo. Moneyball, best stud is Paul George. Talked about him already. And my best value is De'Aaron Fox at 6,000. And for Draft Stars, the best stud is Paul George at 1,740. And the best value play there, I think, is Chetty Osman at 9,620. The best bets have not been off to a great start. I'm going to keep persisting with them, see how they go, keep tracking them. Today's one, we're going with an over-under. The Knicks over of 218.5. I'm going to take the over there. The Nets are still missing their players, but both these teams like playing pretty fast. I think we might have some defensive issues. I think we should get the over here. Hopefully, I need to get on the board with these best bets. Guys, go and subscribe to this podcast, Apple Podcasts, Google Play, TuneIn, Stitcher, Spotify, and on YouTube. Thumbs up, smash subscribe. You know all of the ways to go and help the show. I'm on Twitter at redrock_bball. Check out the rest of the Locked On Podcast Network at Locked On NBA Net. We've got some exciting news. Locked On NBA, which I host on Monday. We've got 2 new guest hosts who are going to be appearing every week on either Tuesday, Wednesday, or Thursday. We've got Ben Golliver from Sports Illustrated and Sam Amick, formerly of USA Today, but now from The Athletic. They are going to be weekly guests on Locked On NBA. So Locked On NBA became even better as your go-to NBA podcast. 30-minute shows, 5 days a week. Sam Amick, Ben Golliver are going to be on the show as guest hosts Tuesday, Wednesday, and or Thursday. I think it's starting from next week, so go and check that out. It's been a great start to the NBA. The season is fully upon us. Stuff happening all over the place, guys. We are done here. Thank you so much for listening, everyone. See ya. Markelle Fultz.